They buried me before I ever had the chance to live. Not in the ground, not with flowers or prayers, but in silence. In that locked storage shed behind our old house, the one that smelled of rust and mildew and forgotten things. I died in there. Not from wounds or illness. From betrayal. It was a Wednesday. The day my older sister, Emily Carter, married my fiancé. My fiancé, Ethan Pierce. I remember the dress. Not hers. Mine. The one I'd saved for months to buy. Pale blue satin trim, delicate embroidery at the collar. She wore it like it had always belonged to her, smiling in every photograph, radiant and shameless. No one asked where I was. No one noticed I was missing. Because I was already the invisible one. The disappointing daughter. The mistake they couldn't quite admit to making. I had asked Ethan to wait for me just a little longer. I was on a temporary government assignment out of state, a 2-year deployment for rural training. He had promised to wait. He lied. And Emily? She didn't even flinch when I called home and heard the wedding music in the background. Just said, "You'll understand one day." Then the line went dead. I returned home immediately. No one greeted me. My father scowled like I'd ruined the ambience. My mother pretended I wasn't there. And when I tried to confront them, when I shouted, cried, demanded answers, they dragged me to the shed and locked the door. Just until the guests left, they said. Just until I calmed down. That night it rained. The next morning it didn't matter. Because I was already gone. When I opened my eyes again, I wasn't in the shed. I was in my old bedroom. The one with peeling paint and a loose floorboard where I used to hide my diary. My limbs were lighter. Smaller. My voice cracked when I gasped. I scrambled to the mirror. Staring back at me was 15-year-old me. Freckles. Braces. That horrible ponytail I'd always worn too tight. My chest heaved. This was wrong. I ran outside. Everything was the same. The garden. The broken porch swing. Even the ugly gold mailbox. And then I saw her, Emily. She was younger too. Still with her perfect French braid and smug smile. She looked up from the porch and rolled her eyes. "You're late. Mom wants the table set." She walked past me without a second glance. I staggered back into the house, into the kitchen. My mother, Caroline Carter, was yelling at the radio. Same voice. Same apron. Same cold eyes. "Nora," she snapped. "Don't just stand there. Plates." That's when I knew. I hadn't imagined it. I had come back. 15 years. All the way back. Back before the betrayal. Before the exile. Before the death I wasn't supposed to come back from. And I wasn't going to waste it. For the next few weeks I played the role. Obedient. Quiet. Helpful. This mom. Of course, Emily. Sorry, Dick. But behind every nod and smile I was planning. This time I wouldn't beg for their love. This time I wouldn't give them a chance to bury me. I would leave on my own terms. And I wouldn't look back. It began with the placement program, a government-run initiative to send young volunteers to rural counties in need of infrastructure support. Most kids tried to avoid it. It meant labor, separation, obscurity. I walked straight into the placement office on my 16th birthday and signed up. The coordinator, a woman named Mrs. Mallory, raised an eyebrow. "You sure you know what this means?" "Yes," I said. "Your family will have to sign consent. This is a long-term assignment. You'll be on your own." That's the point. Convincing my father, Ray Carter, took effort. He was a mid-level bureaucrat. Nothing flashy but enough connections to feel self-important. When I first handed him the form, he laughed. "Volunteer work in the mountains? That's for orphans. You think you're some kind of martyr." "No," I said. "I'm just not useful here." He narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean by that?" I met his stare. "I mean, you've already chosen your daughter. I'm just removing the spare piece." He tried to rip the form in half. I brought him another. When he refused again, I went to his boss. Quietly. I told him Ray Carter was obstructing the state's reallocation program. That he was defying a public assignment mandate. 2 days later, the form was stamped. Signed. Approved. I would be leaving in a week. I didn't tell anyone. Not Emily. Not my mother. Not even Ethan, though he was still my boyfriend at the time. That was his choice too. He would show me who he really was. And I would remember. On the morning of my departure, the sun rose too fast. My bag was already packed. Just one canvas duffel. A water bottle. A small stack of notebooks. I tucked the blue dress at the bottom. Not for sentiment. For firewood. Emily was asleep when I left. Or pretending to be. My mother didn't come downstairs. My father stood in the yard, arms crossed. "This isn't bravery," he muttered. "It's cowardice. Running away." I met his eyes one last time. "No," I said. "It's choosing not to beg." And with that I walked toward the van waiting by the corner. No tears. No hug. No goodbye. And this time it was me locking the door behind them. Most people don't realize how sharp obedience can be. Used right, it cuts cleaner than defiance ever could. I wasn't the same Nora Carter they remembered. Clumsy, eager, always begging for scraps of approval. That girl died the moment they left me in the dark. The new me smiled when she was supposed to. Kept her head down. Took orders without protest. And underneath that silence I built a war plan. The relocation van dropped me and 6 other kids in a town so far from the map it felt like the edge of the country. Mason Ridge, population maybe 200. It was late October. The air was sharp and thin. Everything smelled like pine and firewood. The others were boys, loud, lanky, and annoyed. One of them asked me if I'd gotten sent here by mistake. "You don't look like you've ever worked a day in your life." I just smiled. He didn't speak to me again after I outworked him hauling stone blocks uphill for 3 hours without a break. The village leader, Mr. Calhoun, was tall, gruff, and didn't believe in handshakes. "We don't coddle anyone here," he told me. "Not even girls." "Good," I said. "I didn't come here to be coddled." The first month was brutal. I carried lumber, dug irrigation trenches, hauled barrels of water during ration hours, and helped repair collapsed barns after a storm rolled through. My hands bled. My back ached. My skin turned several shades darker. But I didn't complain. And slowly the villagers started to notice. They'd never seen a girl from the city do the things I did. Wake before sunrise, work past dusk, never once asking for special treatment. They called me Little Doc. After I started helping the local medic, a soft-spoken man named Dr. Russell, who had more patience than time. He showed me how to sterilize gauze, boil tinctures, set dislocated shoulders, and deliver babies. By the end of winter I was the one they sent for when someone fell ill. The one they called when a child had a fever or a farmer broke a wrist. No longer invisible. No longer buried. I was something entirely new. 3 months in, a letter arrived. Not from my parents. Not from Ethan. From Rebecca Hale, a cousin of my old friend Lily. She worked in a regional placement office and had helped me get my assignment in the first place. The envelope was thin but formal. Inside, a printed notice stamped with Carter, Nora, and the words: Declaration of Civil Separation, Status. Voluntary. Below it, a paragraph confirming that I had formally requested a public disassociation from my family, on grounds of abandonment, political manipulation, and personal safety. My signature was already on it. All it needed was theirs. I waited. And waited. Then one morning while I was cleaning the clinic floors, a phone rang in the corner. We rarely got calls. The line barely worked. Dr. Russell picked it up, then handed it to me with a raised eyebrow. "It's for you," he said. My father's voice was tight, cold. "Do you even understand what you've done?" he said. "Do you know what this looks like?" "Yes," I said calmly. "It looks like freedom." There was a pause. Then the venom came. "This declaration will destroy our reputation. Your mother's board position, Emily's standing in school." "Then don't sign it," I said. He scoffed. "Oh, I already did. You think I need a stain like this following me around?" I stared at the receiver for a long time after the call ended. That was it. The last rope tied to the people who buried me was severed by their own hand. And I didn't feel grief. I felt weightless. Like I'd finally stepped out of a cage I didn't know I'd been born into. News spread fast in Mason Ridge. Some people pitied me. Some judged. But most respected me even more. Because I hadn't just walked away. I had made sure there was no door left to knock on. That spring I started teaching the local kids how to read labels on their prescriptions. How to check pulses. How to boil water for infection control. We turned a broken-down barn into a mini health station. People started calling it the Ridge Clinic. And somehow, without ceremony or applause, I became its heart. One afternoon I was sorting bandages when a volunteer from the district dropped off a package. Inside was an old photograph. Me and Lily Bennett, maybe 13 years old. Arms around each other. Laughing. No note. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. Lily. My only real friend. She hadn't been there the day I died, but she hadn't betrayed me either. And in my last life she tried to make amends long after it was too late. Maybe I thought it wasn't too late this time. So I wrote her a letter. Just one line. If you ever want to run, I'll be waiting in Mason Ridge. I didn't know if she'd get it. Didn't know if she was still stuck under her uncle's control, still swallowing her pride like medicine, still afraid to leave. But I sent it anyway. And when I sealed the envelope, I knew I wasn't just running anymore. I was building something no one could take from me. Not my family. Not my past. Not even the girl I used to be. The letter arrived just before the first frost. The return address was scribbled in shaky handwriting, the envelope worn thin like it had been clutched too tightly for too long. Inside was a note from Lily Bennett, written in smudged pencil. I'm ready. No flourish. No apology. Just 2 words. It was enough. I didn't tell anyone I was expecting her. Mason Ridge was generous but still wary of outsiders, especially ones who arrived with no papers, no sponsor, and no one vouching for them. But when I saw her step off the back of the farmer's truck, I knew she didn't need an introduction. Her hair was shorter than I remembered. Her frame thinner. She wore her pain like a second coat, heavy, frayed, hiding everything beneath it. Still she smiled when she saw me. I made it, she whispered. You did, I replied, pulling her into the hug I owed her in 2 lifetimes. That first night she barely spoke. We sat on my porch with chipped mugs of barley tea. She stared at the stars like she hadn't seen sky in years. I didn't press. I just sat beside her, our shoulders touching. When the wind picked up, she leaned into me. I thought about dying, she said. I didn't flinch. I thought, she continued, if I could just disappear quietly, maybe they'd finally leave me alone. But you didn't, I said. No, she whispered. Because I remembered you. My throat tightened. I didn't save you back then. You wrote, she said. You said to run. That was enough. The next morning, Lily began working at the clinic. She didn't have credentials, but she had hands that learned fast and eyes that never missed detail. The villagers took to her quicker than I expected, especially the children who clung to her like a big sister. He and I fell into rhythm. We sterilized tools in silence, handed off gauze with practiced ease, shared meals when the days ran too long to cook separately. She didn't cry often, but when she did, it was always in the laundry shed where no one else could hear. I pretended not to notice. But sometimes I folded her blanket a little neater, boiled her tea a little stronger, sat next to her while saying nothing at all. That's what surviving together looks like. Not dramatic declarations. Just showing up. And again. And again. A month after Lily arrived, I got a visit from Mrs. Mallory, the same official who'd signed off on my relocation papers. She brought news. My declaration of civil separation had been posted publicly. In print. On state record. Irreversible. No more Carter family obligations. No inheritance claims. No legal access to their names, property, or history. I belonged to no one. You sure about this, Nora? She asked. There's no going back. I'm sure, I said. She slid a form across the desk. I signed it without hesitation. Felt like the first time I'd ever really used my own name. Back in the village, Lily found me sitting by the river, staring out at the water with the form still in my hand. She sat beside me quietly. I'm not a Carter anymore, I said after a while. She didn't ask how I felt. She just said, you were never really theirs. That winter was the harshest Mason Ridge had seen in 10 years. Supplies were low. Power outages frequent. People got sick faster and healed slower. But Lily and I didn't falter. We made herbal remedies when medicine ran out. Boiled snow for clean water. Delivered soup door to door even when the wind cut through our coats like blades. The village started calling us the Ridge Sisters. Someone painted a sign for the clinic. Mason Ridge Health. Founded by Nora and Lily. I didn't cry when I saw it. But something in me shifted. For the first time in both lives, my name stood for something other than survival. It stood for care. For healing. For choice. In late January, Lily came running into the clinic with a letter clutched in her hand. It was from a cousin, Rebecca. She'd seen something in a regional bulletin. Ray Carter, my father, had suffered a public disgrace. Misuse of government funds. Demotion. Investigation pending. My mother, Caroline, had been removed from the regional council board. And Emily? Her university records were under audit. Her marriage to Ethan had been voided quietly in court. No one knew why. They were falling. Not because of me. Because the house of cards they'd built finally collapsed under its own weight. Lily handed me the letter, eyes wide. What are you going to do? I looked at it for a long moment, then walked to the fire pit and dropped it in. I'm going to make soup, I said. And I did. By spring the snow had melted. The clinic was full again. The village was healing. And so was I. Not in the grand cinematic way. Not with fireworks or fanfare. But in the quiet way that counts. By waking up every morning and choosing to stay. By looking at Lily across the kitchen table and knowing I had a sister who had chosen me back. By never once writing another letter to the people who buried me. Mason Ridge didn't feel like home at first. It felt like exile. Like a punishment in disguise. But somewhere between the bitter winters and the slow, golden springs, it became mine. By summer I'd memorized every face in the village. Not because I tried, but because people here made eye contact when they spoke. They shook hands like they meant it. They offered warmth without expectation. It was disorienting at first. People back home only looked at you when they needed something. But here, the blacksmith, Mr. Dobbs, who gave me a whistle to carry in case I ever walked home alone at night. The schoolteacher, Miss Clara, who gave me extra chalk and said, if you want to teach the kids about health, use the blackboard. The florist, Harriet, who never asked why I kept buying wildflower seeds in bulk. People didn't know my past here. And they didn't need to. All they knew was that I showed up. That I stayed. That I worked hard and didn't ask for special treatment. And over time that was enough. Lily and I expanded the clinic with reclaimed wood and second-hand cabinets. We didn't have fancy machines, but we had hands that worked, minds that remembered, and hearts that had long ago learned how to keep beating even when it hurt. We made our own antiseptic. Brewed herbal teas with fever-reducing properties. Wrote our own pamphlets on wound care and nutrition, passing them door to door in the evenings. Some days it still shocked me how much people trusted us. Back then I would have been laughed out of a room just for speaking up. Now, mothers brought their children to me without hesitation. Farmers asked me to treat their livestock when the local vet was out. Dr. Russell even stepped back, letting me take on most of the rounds. You've got something the rest of us don't, he said once. You care like your life depends on it. It did. Because every life I helped save felt like another piece of the one I lost. We didn't talk much about the past, Lily and I. Sometimes she'd let things slip. How her uncle used to lock her out when she missed chores, how the school counselor ignored her bruises, how people told her she was lucky just to have a roof. I didn't push. I just listened. That was enough. In July we were asked to speak at a regional health summit. Me. The daughter they tried to bury. I almost declined. But Lily looked me dead in the eye and said, you don't owe them silence. So we went. The summit hall was full of suits and heels and two bright lights. The kind of place I once would have shrunk inside of. But I stood tall. Talked about rural health equity. About grassroots solutions. About community trust. I didn't use fancy words. I used truth. When we finished there was a long pause. Then applause. Slow at first. Then rising. Not everyone stood. But enough did. That night Lily and I sat on the hotel rooftop, eating overpriced fruit from the minibar. You killed it, she said. I shrugged. I didn't do it to impress them. I know, she replied. You did it to show them you're not invisible. I looked at her. Neither are you. She smiled. And I realized, not for the first time, that I hadn't just survived my past. I had rewritten it. In the fall, a government inspector visited the clinic. He was young, nervous, holding a clipboard like it might bite him. I offered him tea. He blinked. Most clinics don't serve tea to auditors. Most clinics aren't built by the women who run them. He flushed and scribbled something. The final report came 2 weeks later. Exceeds all rural health expectations. Operates with extraordinary local engagement and sustainability. We pinned it beside the medicine shelf. Lily added a sticky note next to it. Suck on that, Emily. I didn't ask how she knew the name. I just laughed. One morning in late October I received a package. No return address. Inside was a set of photographs. Me. At the summit. Speaking. Smiling. And then, one of Emily. Candid. Pale. Eyes vacant. Sitting on a bench with a cigarette between her fingers. No note. But I knew who sent it. Ethan. I burned the photo. Not out of anger. Out of mercy. She looked like a ghost. And ghosts should stay buried. The clinic kept growing. Volunteers came and went. We got our first donation from a medical foundation. People asked if I'd ever go back to the city. Start over. Find a husband. Have a family. But I already had one. Her name was Lily. And together we had built something sacred. Not out of inheritance. Not out of expectation. But out of sheer stubborn will. Sometimes when I walked through the garden behind the clinic, I touched the top of the fence. It was where I'd nailed my first ever name tag. Just a plank of wood with rough carving. Nor, do not return. I used to think it was a warning. Now I think it's a promise. The first letter came in a government envelope. At first I thought it was clinic-related, maybe a supply notice or another audit request. But when I opened it, the handwriting inside made my chest tighten. It was my mother's. Caroline Carter. Your father was injured in a workplace accident. He's been reassigned to a remote civilian office. Things aren't easy for us now. If you still have any compassion in your heart, you'll consider coming back to visit. I'm not asking for apologies. Just a daughter's decency. Mom. She didn't sign it, love, Mom. She didn't ask if I was okay. She didn't mention the years of silence or the shed. She just expected a return. Like I was a piece of furniture they had lent to the countryside, and now it was time to drag me back inside. I folded the letter carefully and set it on the edge of the stove. I didn't burn it yet. I wasn't sure what was worse, that they still thought I could be guilt or that they believed decency still existed in the ashes of what they did. 2 days later I got another one. This time from Ethan Pierce. The handwriting was jagged, rushed. They're crumbling. Your father's being investigated. Emily lost her job offer after something came out about the university cheating scandal. I know we don't deserve it, but can you talk to someone on our behalf? You have credibility now. You could help. I've made mistakes. But I always thought about you. That letter didn't go on the stove. It went directly into the fire. It amazed me how little they'd changed. Even in desperation they saw me as a means to an end. Not a person. Not a daughter. Just a key they'd once thrown away, now suddenly remembered when their doors started locking. I didn't reply. Lily saw me the morning after I burned Ethan's letter. She didn't ask, just handed me an extra cup of coffee and sat beside me on the porch. You could, she asked after a long silence. I'm not sure if I'm angry, I said. Or just tired. She nodded. I think that's what healing feels like. Not rage. Just silence. That week we hosted a health fair in town. Dozens of families came from nearby villages. Kids got free checkups. We distributed winter kits and vitamins. Lily gave a short talk about mental health and rural resilience, and I walked the crowd through basic first aid kits we'd assembled with grant funding. A local journalist covered it for a regional paper. The headline the next day read, "Two women who rebuilt a mountain." They quoted me in the article. We weren't saved. We built our own lifeboats. And then we made extra just in case someone else was drowning too. When I read that line back to myself, I didn't cry. I smiled. Guess it was true. Then came the final letter. Thicker envelope. No return name, but I recognized the handwriting. Emily. I don't expect forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to understand. Mom and Dad didn't protect me either. When you left, I thought they'd finally see me. But they only used me harder. I was the distraction. The golden girl. The puppet they dangled to keep their image together. Ethan was a mistake. I knew that even then. But I thought if I had something you wanted, they'd finally love me more than they loved hating you. I'm sorry. I really am. If there's a chance, any chance, to undo what I helped destroy, just write back. Please. Emily. This one I held longer. I read it twice. And I believed her. That didn't mean I forgave her. It meant I finally understood. She wasn't the architect. She was just another casualty, too eager to believe she mattered. But the difference between her and me? When I realized I didn't matter to them, I left. She stayed. I walked the letter out to the riverbank. Lily stood beside me. "Is that the last of them?" she asked. I nodded. Then I lit the match. Watched the corners curl. The ink fade. The past burn. We stood in silence until the wind carried the ashes downstream. That night we danced. No occasion. No music. Just two women in a clinic kitchen, barefoot on cracked tiles, laughing until we couldn't breathe. At one point Lily stopped and looked at me with tears in her eyes. "You know," she whispered, "you're the reason I'm alive." I rested my forehead against hers. "You're the reason I'm still here." We didn't say anything else. We didn't need to. Some bonds don't need blood. They just need choice. And Lily and I? We chose each other. Not all sisters are born. Some are made in silence. In shared pain. In the choice to stay when no one else does. That was Lily and me. Spring came in slowly that year, dragging the last of winter with it. Mud caked the clinic steps. Our storage room flooded twice. The generator gave out on a Wednesday just as we were treating a boy with pneumonia. But we handled it. Because that's what we did now. Not because we were strong. But because we had each other's backs no matter how bad it got. People in Mason Ridge stopped calling us the Ridge Girls. They started calling us the Ridge Women. With respect. With pride. When a regional council tried to send a male medic to oversee our work, the villagers protested. Someone even painted "Let Them Be" across the government jeep in whitewash. He was gone in 3 days. We stayed. Lily had a gift with the patients. She remembered every name, every scar, every family history. Once a girl came in crying over her pregnant goat. Her father had died the month before, and the goat was all she had left of his farm. Lily didn't just calm her down. He stayed up all night with that goat. Slept beside it in the barn. Helped it deliver twins at dawn. The girl named them Hope and Grace. From that day forward, half the village started calling Lily Dr. B. B for Bennett. Maybe for brave. One day while I was checking inventory, I found an envelope addressed to me on the shelf. No postage. Inside was a sketch, done in charcoal, shaky lines but full of heart. It was me and Lily standing under the clinic sign holding stethoscopes like swords. On the bottom corner, scrawled in a child's handwriting. "Thank you for saving my grandma." I kept it pinned behind the door, right where I could see it whenever I felt like a fraud. Which, despite everything, I still sometimes did. Lily applied for an advanced remote certification program without telling me. When the letter came, offering her a full ride to a formal medical degree at the state university, I found her on the porch staring at it. "You should go," I said, heart sinking. "I'm not leaving you," she replied. "Don't stay for me." She looked up. "I'm not." She tore the letter in half and tossed it into the wind. "I stay," she said, "because this is where I became someone. Not just someone's punching bag." That night we got drunk on ginger wine gifted by the blacksmith's wife. We sat on the roof, our feet dangling off the edge, laughing about nothing. Somewhere below us, the villagers were singing around a bonfire. "You know," Lily said softly, "you're more than what they did to you." I looked at her. "And you're more than what they told you you'd become." She smiled. And I knew we were both thinking the same thing. We weren't born sisters. But we chose to be. And in a world where so much was taken from us, that choice was everything. That summer, the Mason Ridge Clinic won a state-level innovation award. Neither of us went to the ceremony. We were too busy pulling glass out of a kid's foot after he stepped on a broken bottle. We did get a plaque, though. Read. "In recognition of community-led medical excellence, Nora Carter and Lily Bennett." We hung it in the outhouse. Because we didn't need a wall to know our worth. We'd already carved it into the land with our bare hands. One afternoon in late August, a journalist came from the city to do a profile on rural resilience. She shadowed us for 2 days, took photos, asked thoughtful questions. But her last one caught me off guard. "What would you say to the people who left you behind?" I didn't flinch. I just said, "Nothing." She looked confused. "I don't owe them anything," I explained. "Not even words." She nodded slowly and packed up her things. The article ran 2 weeks later. The headline: "She doesn't want revenge. She just wants peace." They didn't quote Lily. But if they had, I know what she would have said. "We don't need the world to understand us. We just need it to stop trying to erase us." That fall we started mentoring 2 girls from the neighboring town, Savannah and June. 16 and 17. Both survivors of things we didn't ask about. They helped us organize medicines, clean wounds, learn names. I watched them laugh together on the clinic porch one day and realized we weren't just healing people anymore. We were planting something. The future. One that couldn't be stolen or rewritten or shut in a shed. One night Lily asked me, "Do you ever miss them?" I didn't pretend to misunderstand. "Not anymore," I said. "Missing them means they still own a piece of me." She nodded. "I don't miss mine either." We sat there in the dark, letting silence say the rest. They came back the same way they left. Titled, fragile, full of reasons. It was a gray afternoon in October when a truck pulled into Mason Ridge unannounced. I was in the clinic garden, knees deep in wintergreens, when I heard the engine. At first I didn't look up. Tourists pass through sometimes, strangers with cameras, lost drivers. But then I heard the passenger door slam and a voice I hadn't heard in over a decade. "Nora." I straightened slowly. There they were. Ethan Pierce. And beside him, her arms crossed, jaw tight, Emily Carter. The ghosts of a life I had already buried. They looked like wreckage. Ethan had dark circles under his eyes, hair longer than I remembered. His once pristine posture had wilted. Emily looked thinner, paler. Her old gloss and armor had worn off. Her shoulders sagged like she hadn't slept properly in years. I didn't speak. Not yet. I waited. Emily was the first to crack. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. "That's not true," I replied. "You knew exactly where not to go. And you came anyway." Ethan stepped forward. "We just wanted to talk." Lily appeared behind me, silent as a shadow, gloves still on from sorting herbs. She didn't say a word. He didn't have to. I turned to her. "Could you finish the mint batch? I'll deal with this." She nodded and slipped away, eyes flicking once, sharp and protective, toward them before she vanished back inside. I led them to the clinic porch. Didn't offer water. Didn't ask how they'd been. Ethan cleared his throat. "We read about the clinic. The article said you turned this place around. That you saved lives." I said nothing. Emily stared at the floorboards. "I'm not here to beg." "Good," I said. "Because you won't get anything." That hit her. She flinched. Ethan leaned forward. "You don't understand." "No," I interrupted. "You don't understand. You came here thinking I'd forgotten what you did. That I buried it somewhere in this garden with my grief." They were both quiet. I went on, voice calm. "You didn't just betray me. You left me locked in a shed while you wore my dress and married each other. You erased me." Emily whispered. "I was scared. And I was dying." Silence again. Then Ethan said, "We're not asking you to come back. We're just lost." "And you want me to fix it?" I asked. "You think because I learned how to survive I'll help you patch your wreckage?" His jaw clenched. "That's not fair. Neither was what you did." Emily wiped her face. I wasn't sure if it was sweat or tears. Maybe both. "I'm not proud of it," she said. "Any of it. These me, Nora. They promised me love if I took everything from you. And you believed them," I said. "Because you wanted their love more than you wanted to be decent." She didn't deny it. That, at least, was honest. I stood. The conversation was over. "If you're looking for forgiveness," I said, "go find a church. And if you're looking for sympathy," Lily added, stepping back onto the porch with arms crossed, "go back to the people who raised you to think it's owed." Ethan opened his mouth. But I was already walking away. Lily stayed behind just long enough to say one more thing. "You two buried a woman who dug herself back out. And the person standing in front of you? She doesn't need anything from you, not closure, not guilt, not even your regrets. So take them elsewhere." They left. No dramatic last words. No apology that could rewrite what they'd done. Just silence. And dust. Later that night, Lily found me in the kitchen. She poured me tea and sat beside me at the counter. "I'm proud of you," she said. I let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I thought I'd feel something bigger. Closure. Relief. "What do you feel instead?" "Nothing." "That's the point," she said. "They don't live in you anymore." We didn't speak of them again. There was no need. The past had tried to rise and I buried it again, but this time with no part of me inside it. 2 weeks later a letter came. No return address. I didn't open it. Lily burned it without asking. Because that's what sisters do. I used to wonder how my story would end. If I'd get justice. If they'd beg. If I'd ever hear the words, "I'm sorry," and finally feel free. But freedom didn't come the way I thought it would. It didn't come in courtroom victories. Or headlines. Or apologies. It came one morning when I was planting marigolds behind the clinic, and I realized I hadn't thought about them in weeks. There's a kind of peace that doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in. With every sunrise you witness alone and survive. With every laugh that's real. With every time you open your eyes and don't feel buried anymore. That peace feels like breathing clean air after a life spent underground. The clinic held its second anniversary celebration that spring. Lily made pies from scratch. I hung string lights from the trees. Kids ran around with wildflower crowns. Local musicians played off-key but no one cared. Half the town showed up. Some of the volunteers we trained came back just for the day. One of them, Savannah, had been accepted to nursing school. She gave a short speech and called us her founding mothers. Lily cried. I pretended not to. When the sun dipped low and the fireflies came out, someone handed me a mic. I wasn't sure what to say, but the words came slow and certain. 2 years ago I came here with nothing. Not even my name felt like it belonged to me. I wasn't born brave. I just got tired of dying in silence. And now standing here I realize. You don't need to be rescued to be worthy. You don't need to be chosen to matter. You just need to decide, once fiercely, that you are not what they did to you. People clapped. Lily hugged me so tight I almost dropped the mic. That night, long after everyone had gone, I walked to the garden. The marigolds had bloomed. Bright and gold and defiant. I sat by the fence and traced the old carving I'd made years ago. Nor, do not return. Funny how I'd meant it as a warning. And now it was a promise I'd kept. They never came back again. Not Ethan. Not Emily. Not my parents. Maybe they finally realized there was nothing left here for them. Or maybe they knew they wouldn't survive another visit. Either way, I didn't care. They were ghosts. And I had stopped mourning. One day, a young girl came to the clinic alone. 10 years old, bruises hidden beneath long sleeves. No one asked her who she belonged to. We gave her soup, a bed, and the same quiet kindness Mason Ridge had once given me. That's how the next chapter of my life began. Not with a grand gesture, but with a small one. Because peace doesn't start with punishment. It starts with protection. Lily and I built a shelter beside the clinic that summer. Just 2 rooms for girls like us. Girls who needed silence and soup and someone to tell them, you are not broken. You were just unloved. We called it the Foundry. Because it wasn't just shelter. It was where you melted down who they said you were, and forged who you really are. People ask me now if I'm proud of what I built. I tell them no. I'm proud of who I became when I was supposed to stay buried. I'm not the girl in the shed anymore. I'm the woman with the key. The one who chose herself. And that was the story all along. The end.